Welcome to the Disability and podcast, bringing together thoughtful discussions and debate. My name is Paul Wilshaw. I'm a learning disabled producer and actor, currently working as the assistant producer with England's leading learning disability performance and live arts company, Mind the Gap. I am excited to announce that Mind the Gap are the new co-hosts for the podcast, in partnership with Disability Arts Online. This month, Michael McEwan talks to Kate Adams and Esther Springett about the innovative visual arts organisation and Turner Prize nominees project artworks.
Hello and welcome to Disability and my name is Michael McEwan. I'm joined today by Esther Springett from Project Artwork, and Esther is the support collaboration lead, and also we're joined by Kate Adams, who is the co-founder of Project Artwork as well. So welcome to the podcast. Kate, if I can ask you firstly, you co-founded a Project Artwork back in 1997, but why was it important to have an organisation like this set up?
When we first started doing projects in special schools, actually, it was a collaboration between myself and Jonathan Cole, who was a painter that I was sharing a studio with. We didn't really plan to set up an organisation. We just planned to do some residencies and experimentations with different ways of working with art and materials to enable children with disabilities, complex support needs, and autistic children to engage on their own terms with art materials and processes. I have a son who has complex support needs, and at the time I was very interested in how art was being produced in his school, because it involved a lot of hand over hand working with materials. So, you know, he would produce an Easter card or something, which I know he hadn't made himself. So we were really interested in just exploring that. And then from that, the work was so dynamic because I wanted to explore sensory materials and processes, which meant that often children we were working with, their whole bodies were engaged in it or touching materials and different kinds of materials, like with painting and casting. And so out of that came an exhibition, and from that came the gradual development of project artworks. And as you say, there we felt there was a need for the organisation to open up more opportunities for people, children, and then gradually all sorts of people to make art.
So if I can turn to you, Esther, can you tell us about the ethos behind the Project Artwork?
Yeah, of course. I guess it starts with empathy and allowing a space for people to have agency and freedom of expression where in other parts of their lives they don't, and working in a creative and collaborative way with neurodiverse people really enables individuals to show themselves in a way they may not have before, and for other people to see them in a new light. And so that in itself is quite a political statement with a small p. And often working in the way we do, which is very responsive, and it's about exploring someone's remit of communication can be completely life-changing for that individual, but also the people facilitating that and the people that are in that person's circle of support. So the ethos is about sharing that experience, opening up conversations to explore neurodiversity and raise awareness, not only in the arts and cultural sector, but also within social care. And so there's this kind of dual mission, which is about supporting the practice of neurodiverse artists, but also awareness raising more broadly around disability.
And so Esther, tell us what your own work with Project Art, and does your advocacy and support that you support your sister features as part of your work at Project Arts?
Absolutely, yeah. So part of my role, and an important part of my role, is the peer advocacy, because I think unless you've experienced what it's like to support someone with complex support needs, you struggle to connect with others. And so growing up, I experienced quite a lot of social isolation, and obviously hindsight is a brilliant thing, and it's only now looking back that I realised that I did have a lot of responsibility, and I guess I draw on that, and you know, my work with Project Artworks does rely on that lived experience, and it's down to me how much of that I share and in what context. So when I'm working with family members, and that includes parents and siblings, I will be quite open, and I think that's, like I mentioned before, a key factor with empathy, as well as being able to put yourself in other people's shoes. And I can quite readily do that, but obviously it does, draw on my reserves, and it's a very emotional role. And then again, with the lived experience, I pick and choose when to share that in different contexts. So we do have a position to influence change, not only within the arts and cultural sphere, but also within social care. And a key part of our work is to gather the voice of people with experience of caring and supporting someone with complex support needs, and raise that up and talk about what the key issues are with commissioners, with representatives from health and social care.
You said that the emotional support as well, but I would imagine it's rewarding to see the work that you're doing and how the support that you're giving your sister. And I bet your sister is thankful for your support that you do kind of like every day out with kind of like your work at Project Arts as well.
I definitely think that if she was able to say that would be something that she would be proud of. But my sister has complex support needs. She doesn't use verbal language to communicate, so it's all about tuning in to her and the subtle kind of signs of communication that she shows through her body language, and that again, that is how we function and work in the studio. It's a sort of subtle tuning in to watching and listening.
Esther, can you tell us a bit about the support collective?
Yeah, so the Support Collective is a group of people with lived experience of caring for someone with a learning disability or an autistic person. And within our studio programme during the week, we work with up to 50 adults. And there's a lot that goes into ensuring that those artist makers can show up in their practice and be in the studio. And that relies heavily on their circles of support. So there's kind of an invisible piece of work that we are trying to make visible day by day, which is the complex infrastructures surrounding someone with complex support needs and what their loved ones and their representatives and advocates have to navigate constantly. And so the support collective offers peer support, it offers practical training. So for example, we support families that employ their own personal assistants and support workers. So we have teamed up with other organisations to offer training on how to recruit, how to supervise and keep a happy team of personal assistants. And then we have more outwardly focused public events. So we're about to launch a summit, which will be a series of webinars focusing on housing and the issue of securing housing longer term. And having the safety net of housing, which is really quite a crucial issue facing people, especially within our region at the moment. And yeah, we've during COVID, we've been, for a lot of people, the main point of contact and the main kind of source of information around the emergency response to COVID. So where will I get my vaccine from? What are my rights? How do I navigate restrictions placed on my liberty? And so that's been quite a key moment for the support collective. Advocacy support groups locally don't typically engage with carers, and carers' rights are hugely overlooked and exploited as well.
Kate, I wanted to ask you, have you seen the artists' confidence kind of like grown over the years since they've actually, first day they come in the door, and then 5 years down the line they're like, no, I can do this myself. So have you seen like people's confidence change in that period of time?
Yes, very much so. I mean, we have relationships with people for many, many years. I think the main thing that happens is that there is an understanding that evolves around an individual that transforms the way that they're seen by others as much as for themselves. And that really helps the culture around them to evolve to become much more supportive of what they do and who they are and how incredible they are as well as individuals and as potential artists. I mean, for some of the people who attend the studios, whether they are an artist or not doesn't really matter to them. What matters is the quality of experience and their output, which gradually evolves and which they respond to over time. I mean, we very much value whatever people can do, and that valuing, I think, is what creates confidence. And then there are other people who attend the studios who do have a really strong sense of identity as an artist. And that's very important to nurture and to find routes into sharing their work and enabling them to become as independent as possible in their practice. We have an archive of over 5,500 works now, because much of the work that is made in the freedom and experimentation of the studio is very large scale, too large scale for most domestic situations. So, and it needs to be in order to be able to generate this sense of freedom and purpose, and without the constraints of risk assessments and so on. But in a short answer to your question is yes, it very much does. The production of work, seeing it in public spaces, and for many of the artists being in public spaces alongside their work really does build confidence. It also builds an identity that's completely transformative and different to these ideas of being someone who absorbs public money through being a recipient of benefits and services, which I think is another big aspect of the work, because there is a very, very entrenched attitudinal change that needs to take place. And the entrenched attitude is that people who are in receipt of public funding are somehow takers and non-contributors. So the extraordinary works that are made, and then the way in which exhibitions are put together, are very mindful of completely transforming those ideas and disarming them in many ways.
What I was going to say to that, to follow up on as well, that if people looks at artworks designed by people with disability, suddenly they forget that they've got a disability. These people, but would you say that disability is only like a label at times as well?
Yes, it's well, essentially no one is essentially vulnerable or disabled. They are disabled by the many factors in society and communities, and also made vulnerable by those. This word vulnerable is used, I think, in a way that really disempowers people. Just coming back to the idea of what it is to need support. My son has a personal health budget through continuing healthcare, and we as a family, and he employs 9 people to support him in his daily life. He is a generator of economic activity. He is an employer, and he creates stability in people's lives, who can then be active participants in the economic model that we exist with in this country. He also contributes a huge amount to the tax system through that process of being an employer. And those sorts of ways of thinking are really critical to repositioning people. The artworks, as you say, very, very insightfully do disrupt people's ideas as well. And that is a key mission of Project Artworks, is to reposition people, to disrupt preconceptions, and to actually connect people together and show our commonalities much more than our differences.
Project Artworks has developed the use of video, and I think that's very important, so that you can actually see people in action. And you've co-won a film award in London back in 2020. If you can tell us about that and how that has impact on the organisation by winning that award.
One of the things that has been central to the work from the beginning is to, first of all, show the work, and secondly, then create a sort of narrative and process of insight into how the work came into existence. And that then is the process by which these disruptions of ideas about disability come. That's where they come from. By actually showing these extraordinary artworks and people and their amazing way in which they function in the world and what they bring to us, and then to share that in a way that is non-exposing, but very much geared towards connecting with people who may not have experience of disability in their lives. So film is very much part of that process, and it helps to articulate a lot that is beyond words and language, and works on a different level, I suppose, of experience. So we use film in all sorts of ways, and it's just developed into another strand of our production over time.
So, Esther, if I can turn back to you, you've kind of like directed your film series called Family Stories, and I would ask people, if you haven't saw that film, to go into the app, could go onto the website, because it tells wonderful stories of wonderful families. So why is it so important for people to tell their story?
I think the films originated from this feeling that there's an awful lot of information out there, and it's not always readily available and accessible. And I had got fed up with just wading through PDF booklets, advocacy leaflets. Like, the paperwork is extensive when you are a carer. And I just felt that there are some really significant voices within the support collective that tell it how it is, that have a font of knowledge, and you can rifle through, Section 6 Care Act 2014, or you can sit next to someone, and I know which one I would choose. And I think the films are about pulling up a chair next to someone and asking for their experience. So in doing that, it empowers that individual, because they realize that they've amassed this knowledge through their experience, and they're able to share that and make a difference to other people's lives. And their advocacy tools, they can go further, they can go wide. And I believe, and I'm working on another series of films now with siblings, that the sibling voice is a lesser heard voice. And certainly when we think about growing up with a sibling, it is that sense of incoming responsibility that I don't think there's enough support around. So sort of preparing the siblings for the future as well, because what we have is, we have a system that's very much set up, a social care system that's set up to supporting the elderly, but we have a huge population of people with complex support needs that are living into adulthood. And when my sister was younger, our family were told that she wouldn't survive into adulthood, but because of the marvels of medicine and the management of her needs, she is surprising everyone. And so we need a social care system and an integrated health system that acknowledges that people have lifelong needs, and so do their families. And so I hope the films articulate that in a way which is accessible and is dignified and respectful for the lives of these families that are extraordinary. And we have so much to learn from their resilience and their power, where in the past maybe they have felt disempowered. I hope the films do empower a voice, which is a unique perspective on the lives of neurodivergent artists and their families. It's a window into a world that we don't often see beyond the studio.
Okay, as well as doing brilliant work in England, you are a global partner because you were invited to an exhibition in Germany. So what does it mean to be a global partner for this event, and what will this be shown at the festival?
Well, it's incredibly exciting. Actually, the Documenta program, Documenta 15, that will take place in Kassel over 100 days between June 18th and September 22nd. It's a very extraordinary exhibition across the city in Kassel, but it's happening now, the whole project, because the artistic leads are an organization called, they're an artist collective from Indonesia based in Jakarta called Ruang Grupa, and they are very invested in the local and are bringing that idea of community connection and change and the reimagining of how we can live into a global platform of Documenta 15. So we were asked to be part of the central artistic collectives as one of from that come from all over the world. We're working with people from Indonesia, Bangladesh, Colombia, Cuba, many different African countries, Palestine, and many other places. And that has been an extraordinary experience, because what we're finding is a balance of shared values and visions that are about reimagining our world, and also they're really predicated on care for our environment, care for each other, and that is very refreshing to be in a central cultural space around contemporary art that has this extraordinary value system at its heart. So we've just come back, actually. We were in Kassel last week. We're trying to connect with neurodivergent communities and disabled people in and around Kassel and in Germany. We've met some extraordinary people, of course, as we know we will. And we are setting up spaces over there where we can work with many different people directly prior to the 100 days and during the 100 days. So there will be a real sense of action and production as part of our involvement, and we hope very much that it will go beyond the 100 days as well. Certainly Ruang Grupa's vision is to create a global movement that will endure.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, Casey. And you never know, people might listen to this from other countries and want to work with your organisation as well. It sounds brilliant what you're doing. So, Kate, can I ask you, like, last year you were nominated for the Turner Prize along with 4 other kind of organisations. So tell us a bit about that, and you know, because the Turner Prize is a very big kind of late award. So how did that go down in your organisation?
Well, it was great. It was a bit of a surprise, a nice surprise. We were very honoured actually to be sharing the Turner Prize shortlist with 4 other collectives, all of whom had very different strands of work that they were involved in, and we put together an exhibition that we felt was, you know, really reflected the work of the studios, but the organisation as a whole, and some of the more subtle political areas of our work. And I mean, it was pretty intense, incredibly intense, from being informed in May to putting on this major exhibition in September. It was a bit like a sort of super tanker that rolled through our entire organisation. But we have a very, we have an incredibly committed organisation that's of amazing people. And yeah, it was good. It was, what was wonderful is the way in which we try and influence change in cultural spaces as much as possible by generating awareness raising and talking to institutions about what access actually means in practice in a really deep level, like quiet visiting, for example, which are a bit like accessible performances, and how to connect with communities around them that they very often don't even know about. So we've been doing that work with organisations and galleries for over a decade, really deep collaborations in order to generate awareness raising and much better connection with neurodivergent communities around them, because people need to be found and nurtured in order to generate generations of neurodivergent artists and makers who may miss out on art school, for example. So this platform was like a really good way to jump over quite a few barriers in the cultural sector into this central venue and event in the contemporary art calendar. I mean, I don't think it was terribly well received by the cultural sector, the cultural critics. Just the idea of collectives is not something that they're necessarily on board with. So they're going to have a real struggle with Documenta this year. But it is what artists do now. They are interested in communities and interested in working deeply to care and generate change. So it was a really good platform. Do you want to say anything, Esther?
Yeah, it just feels quite dreamlike after the challenges of the last few years with the pandemic. To kind of come out in a flourish like this has been amazing, and it's been such a beacon of light for a lot of the artists, makers and their families.
And it has to be said that actually Coventry City of Culture, who were central to hosting the and the Herbert Gallery to hosting the Turner Prize, they couldn't have been more helpful actually to us and to our communities. And the award ceremony was a complete triumph for, we had, quite a few of our artist makers there, and they were completely sensitive to their needs and how they could be best accommodated. So it was very, very impressive, and I think that's a big success.
Can I just ask you finally, Kate, how do you see Project Arts developing going forward over the next few years?
It's difficult to tell, really. I mean, we didn't plan to be nominated for the Turner Prize or the Jarman Award, and certainly not to take part in Documenta, but it's so what we're trying to do is build into our kind of forward plans a bit of open space to accommodate these potential spontaneous things, but we need space. We have a quite a critical need now, because there are many people who would like to join the studios, but also those people in the studios need more independent spaces. So we plan to open a space in Hastings Town Centre as part of the Hastings Commons development, which is a really interesting project which you could check out online, and also to try and secure a capital development grant for developing and rebuilding in some areas our current space, which is across these 3 arches. It's a road bridge, but it's a really wonderful space here that is semi-industrial, and it has a very wonderful set of buildings that have outside space. It's next to a railway, so it's a really good site to develop. So our plans are to develop space, to find a different way to develop and to mine and I suppose in some ways exploit the archive, and to continue a really deep artist development program, and just carry on the work. And one of the things we've always done is to respond to context and external events. And so obviously with Documenta, I suspect there will be a wave of activities that could come out of that. And certainly some international collaborations may be, part of that.
Well, good luck with your work, and I enjoyed speaking to Esther and Kate today. So thanks for joining us on the podcast, and good luck with your work going forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you for asking us.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's great to meet you.
Thank you.
A big thank you to Michael, Kate and Esther. Next month, you can expect to hear a conversation with Julia Skelton, Executive Director of Mind the Gap, on the history and future of the company, hosted by myself. We are thrilled to invite you along on this exciting opportunity with Disability Arts Online. I want you to be part of the journey. Therefore, if you have any questions or topics you would like us to cover, please contact us via Mind the Gap's Twitter @MTG Studios or Disability Arts Online Twitter @Disability Arts.